There are nowhere near enough EV chargers in the UK. I'm always having to queue. Well, now Tesla opened up superchargers to all, I'm going to be queuing all day. Have you heard these? Well, I get regular comments with these claims, yet I, who charge more than maybe 100 times a year, albeit mostly only for very brief sessions to check out the chargers for my viewers, I've not queued this year, not once. Well, hi, I'm Dave. Welcome to Dave Takes It On, and we look into EV charging and queuing. Now, I know I'm going to get comments attacking me, but let me stress, I often do see queues, and I've filmed queues, and I go to specific locations to try to find queues, and I go at peak times. So I'm not saying queues don't exist, but I stress again, I've never, in 2023, had to queue to charge my car. So let's get a bit down to earth. In my recent interview with Tom and his first EV, he turns out to be absolutely typical of most EV drivers in the UK. He charges at home. He commutes a handful of miles a day. Once a year he does a long distance. It's almost 300 miles each way for a family holiday in Devon. And he has to use public chargers on that trip. He also does one or two shorter trips to the lakes where he doesn't have to use public chargers. His car has an effective range of 200 miles, and Keswick for him in the North Lakes is about 85 miles, so a return trip to the North Lakes is quite feasible with no public charging. Public charging for Tom is a once-a-year issue, and he plans accordingly. With a young son, he doesn't want to spend the whole day in the car on the family holiday, so he breaks his journey with an overnight stay near Bristol, and the location has rapid and fast overnight chargers. So while he sleeps, his car charges. Well, the average mileage is now heading down to just over 7,000 miles, about 140 miles a week. This is not guesswork, or my best estimate. This is from a number of leasing companies, MOT stations and the RAC. So if you disagree with the figures and your best guess is different, I suggest you go and read their reports. Tom is expecting to do around this figure, maybe slightly more. Well, for Tom, public charging isn't an issue and queues don't exist in his list of things to worry about. Tom is a typical average EV driver. The latest lease figures I've seen put the average mileage covered at 7,600 miles a year. However, for those of us who do charge out on the road at public chargers, particularly if that's regular, for example, you cannot charge at home, what is the reality? Well, I've been asked many times to look into queuing by many viewers, so I'm already in the middle of some serious research. So I'm happy to reveal what I've found so far. So we actually need to put all this into perspective. Most EV drivers do not use public chargers more than once, maybe twice a year. It's not an issue. And I know that is no help to those of you who regularly need to use public chargers and you do experience queues, but you are in a very small minority. So here goes. There are so many factors that this future video is getting more and more complicated the more I research. Which charger are you referencing? I regularly visit chargers and I monitor chargers on my Tesla's dashboard, and I run most of the charging network apps, which now are required to show occupancy. Some charger locations do not get queues. In all my monitoring, some of them have never shown a full occupancy. Never. At the other extreme, some regularly do get queues, but even those chargers spend more than 17 hours each day not being used. So, what time of day are you referring to? See, most chargers are not charging for most of the day. Even really busy locations do not see chargers being used at all between, say, 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. And during the day, there are extended periods where chargers are likewise virtually unused. Next, what make of EV do you have? By far the majority of EV chargers in the UK are slow or fast chargers, less than 11 kilowatts, sometimes as low as 3. And the average time on one of those is several hours, often overnight. Overnight, don't worry about it. The average Tesla supercharger is 250 kilowatts, and the average new Tesla can charge at that rate, adding up to 200 miles in 15 minutes. Mine is older, I definitely don't get that. Well, GridServe typically now install 350 kilowatt chargers, but the average maximum charging power of non-Tesla cars is around 100 kilowatts. The average charging time on public chargers is now 40 minutes. Well, this makes it really complicated. Also, if you happen to arrive at a 350 kilowatt charger and all the EVs plugged in are Dacia Springs with a maximum charging rate of 34 kilowatts and a 25 kilowatt hour battery, you're going to be there for much more than 40 minutes. If you arrive at the same charger, all the cars are Porsche Taycans with a 90 kilowatt hour battery and 270 kilowatt maximum charging rate, you're likely to be waiting no more than 20 minutes. Likewise, at a supercharger full of Model 3s with a 60 kilowatt battery and 250 kilowatt maximum charging rate, you're likely to be there for less than 20 minutes. Well, in conclusion, there are so many variables that a one-size-fits-all answer is simply not possible, but you keep asking for an answer. Well, GridServe recently gave a really helpful graph on the website over the Christmas period showing quiet and busy times. Get to know your local or regular charger and plot the busy times, then avoid them. A rep on the road may need to charge at lunchtime to be able to complete his work in the afternoon, but the average EV driver does not. Choose your time and make queues a thing of the past. That applies to all chargers. So Tesla EVs have a live interactive map showing chargers and occupancy rates, and it's constantly on the screen. Head for a charger which is quiet and avoid those that are almost full. It's a no-brainer. I can already hear the shout of, well, it's easy for you, but I have no choice. Yes, you do. There are 168 hours in a week. The average EV does 140 mile a week and has a real-world range, even in the winter, of nearly 200 mile. You need to charge once a week, and it will take about 15 minutes. If there is any EV commuter out there who says they cannot change the time of charging to avoid queues and pick a different 15 minutes, then sorry, I do find that really hard to believe. Which brings me back to how I never queue to charge. You see, I hate queues. Doesn't matter where I go, what I do, I avoid queues. I now found it's second nature. Now with EVs, it's called route planning. Let me give you an example. I recently drove from Preston to Essex to visit the GridServe hub at Braintree and also film some additional chargers. My car can comfortably cover 200 mile on one charge. My target was Chelmsford for an overnight stay, which is 250 mile away. So I'll need to charge on the way there. I know this in advance. The hotel, I also know, has no destination charger, so at some point I'm going to need to top up. My plan is to get there and then drive around Chelmsford, finding various chargers local to the hotel. Then go and find my hotel for the night and visit GridServe hub the next morning. It's only a few miles. I plan to film various other chargers throughout the day and then return that same evening. And I will definitely need to stop on the way back home. What is my planning? I top up to 95% overnight in Preston on my home charger, cheap off-peak rates. Cost me about £7 to fill it up. I set off about 10 a.m. Once I reach Birmingham, which is about 100 miles away, I start to look for chargers. Although I need to charge to get to Chelmsford, I do not need to arrive in Chelmsford with a full battery. I might only need about 50 mile or maximum 100 mile that night once I get to Chelmsford driving around. So if I stop in Birmingham, I'm likely to get there with 50 mile or more range left. That's enough. Not ideal, but what I do is I watch my screen for the chargers and their occupancy rates. With over 100 miles range left, I have at least 4 motorway services with chargers before I have to stop. So my ideal stop is exactly 100 mile further on, but any time after 50 miles, it makes little difference. So I simply pick the next charger with plenty of vacancies, which is not in the charging peak rate tariff. All Tesla chargers have peak and off-peak, and they vary widely. And when I stop, do not need to replace what I've used and top back up to 95%. I simply need to top up enough to get me to Chelmsford with 50 or possibly 100 mile range left. So my stop here will be around lunchtime, so my car charges while I eat. When I set off, I'll not have my battery back up to 95%. I don't need it. Might only be 60, 70, 80%. I get there. I do my various visits and filming. Then I go and find my hotel. So I can go and find my hotel, but my battery's pretty low, so I have several choices. Charge, check in, eat and sleep, check in, eat, charge, sleep, check in, eat, sleep, breakfast, then charge, check in, eat, sleep, charge, then this is planning, and that's the choice. I can and always will choose to charge when charges are free. I will never choose to charge when they are full. There are queues or at peak tariff. Well, this is now second nature to me. It takes seconds, mere seconds. Is the charger empty? Yeah, go and charge. Is it full? Go and eat. Only charge what I need to get me to my next location, never to 100%. But this seems to be the exception. See, I googled queuing. I was absolutely overwhelmed by the results. Not EV charger queuing, but general queuing. Is this a British thing? Did we invent queuing? Do we enjoy it? You do know you can get an app to tell you if there's a queue at your supermarket. God, this is plainly ridiculous. I just cannot understand the attitude. I hate queues. Supermarkets have queues at certain peak times. I don't go to supermarkets at peak times. I hate airport queues. I generally choose an early morning flight, check in online, get to the airport really early, generally sail through check-in and customs, and spend a relaxing time waiting for my flight to be called. We all get 168 hours in a week to achieve certain things. If your life-work balance is such that you cannot move the charging of your EV once a week to a time when there are no queues, you really do need to look at that balance. The average EV driver does not need to charge every night. Get rid of that. The average EV driver will only ever charge for about 40 minutes. Now, I know many of you will be up in arms, but answer this question honestly. If your favourite actor or pop star announced they were appearing in a meet and greet in a pub 10 miles away free of charge, and you get an invite, could you and would you find time to go? I rest my case. Oh, by the way, I just did a roundup of Tesla chargers open to all. Did one last night, 6 o'clock, and done one today at 11:40 on Saturday. I found no chargers full with a queue. Not one. Plan your day and your release time you previously spent queuing. But here's a final tip for you that doesn't apply to Teslas and gives you a huge advantage over me. I recently interviewed Phil, regular viewer who has a Nissan Ariya. He told me that on the trip out with his family to Eureka Museum in Halifax, he rang the Nissan dealer, really close nearby, and asked if the charger was vacant. See, nearly all Nissan dealers, and many others like Renault, have on-site chargers for the customer that are free to use, totally free. Well, the garage in this case reserved the charger for Phil, so he drove there, left his car on charge, wandered round to Eureka, spent several hours with the family there. He got free parking, free charging. It's almost a free day out. Why don't more of us do that? In fact, if there's a free dealer charger near where you live, why don't you book a once a week free charge up to 100% if it's free? Now that's really free motoring. Well, thanks for watching. I'm Dave. Well, thanks very much for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please click the like button. And if you'd like to see more, please subscribe and click the notification bell so we can notify you next time we launch a video. And a massive thank you to all our Patreon supporters. It is your support that enables us to go out and make these videos for you. So thank you very much for your contribution. I'm Dave.